Hi and welcome back to my YouTube channel once again. When my wife and I got married way back in the early 70s, we lived in Darwin for the first 6 months of our marriage, which is in Australia's Northern Territory. It's the capital of Australia's Northern Territory, right up what they call the top end. And I was actually there for 6 months before that, so I was there for 12 months in total. And that's really, the Northern Territory was where I got hooked on photography because of all the scenery and the wildlife and just totally different tropical way of living. So I got hooked on photography back then. But one of the first things I learnt very quickly was that there are some dangerous critters around the place up there. In the creeks and the rivers and the billabongs, you've got to be careful of the saltwater crocodiles, or estuarine crocodiles as they're called, and the big salties they are. And they can grow very big, and they are quite, dangerous. And we have probably 4 or 5 deaths a year in Australia because of, or near deaths in Australia because of crocodiles, both up in Darwin and in Queensland as well, and also in Western Australia. They are found there, right up in the northern parts of the country. And also in the wet season, there are 2 seasons in the tropics, the wet and the dry. And in the wet season, which is roughly from about November through to about February, they have these jellyfish that appear in the ocean there that are very dangerous, the box jellyfish that can sting you and you can die. So Australia's got lots of dangerous critters, snakes as well, but what you've got to do is just be careful and be aware. Well, I very much became aware of that you don't go swimming without checking a place out up in the tropics. Anyway, back about 10 years ago, I had the good fortune to be able to travel to Darwin and stay with a friend of mine who was visiting his son who was up there, and then we drove all the way back down, but to Adelaide from Darwin, which was took us about 4 days, staying overnight on the way. And we had a great time there, but one of the things we did was we went to the Adelaide River, which is, where is it? Out in the wetlands on the edge of Arnhem Land, I suppose. And the Adelaide River is a tidal river, and at the Adelaide River Bridge there are some people that run crocodile tours where you can go on a boat and watch crocodiles jumping out of the water to get meat that is dangled there for them, and you get given a very good education about crocodiles. So I captured some video, not much, but I took a lot of stills too on that trip back in 2011. It's only a pretty basic little single chip mini DV camera I was using. I haven't really edited any of what I took. Mostly I took stills, but the opening of this video is going to be all about crocodiles and something about the birds of prey that were also attracted to the boat. But the opening video on here is all about the first part on the boat, and you'll see 1 or 2 crocodiles, one jumping out of the water, and then after that you'll see lots of stills, a slideshow, and there will be some commentary from me about some of the slides as we go. So sit back and enjoy, and we are straight on from here. We're on the boat. So thanks for watching.
So I'll just ask you to just remain seated while we leave the dock, and once we're out and about in the river, you're more than welcome to move around on the boat. Good morning once again, folks. As I said, my name's Jim. I'm your skipper today. Also on board we've got Cherie. Cherie's our hard-working crew member. Well, she tells us she is. She's going to be feeding the crocodiles for us. That'll be happening from the upper level of the boat. And a few people up there, you'll see the feeding bays each side of the deck. We will feed the crocodiles from both sides, so if you could just keep out of the feeding bays for Cherie, It'll make it a lot easier for her. If she can access those, if you just keep those areas clear for her, it'd be much appreciated. Also folks, a couple of other little safety issues I need to cover. I do need to let you know where your life-saving devices are situated on board the boat. Once you see what's in the water, I'm pretty sure you won't be keen to use them. I know what's in the water, so I've got no intention of going in there, so I don't think we'll be needing any life-saving devices, but I do have to let you know where they are by law. If you're downstairs, we've got a locker full of life jackets at the rear of the compartment. If you're upstairs, you'll see those big orange floats at the front of the deck. You're welcome to sit on them. If we found ourselves in the water, the idea is just to hang on. That'll sound just like that. You'll hear the motor slow down. That usually means we have a crocodile approaching, and when we have a crocodile around the boat, we just ask you not to change levels at that time, just while we feed the crocodile, because they can jump higher than the railings around those outer decks, the lower decks. So please don't go out onto the rear lower deck or the front lower deck while we feed the crocs. Often another crocodile will sneak up from under the water. You won't even know that it's there. So just for your own safety, just stay inside or upstairs, wherever you happen to be at the time, while we feed the crocodile. And then once we move away from it and the boat's cruising along as we are now, then you're more than welcome to change levels. And I suggest you do that. Have a look from the opposite level that you're on. You'll get a different perspective of the crocodile jumping. So basically, if you have to keep up with us. So that's about all of the formality. With the sound of the boat means food. That's the only reason that we do get to see them. They're all wild animals that we see. It's really entirely up to the crocodiles. We just get to see the ones that are hungry, basically. They're very good at concealing themselves. They do spend a lot of the time under the water. They can hold their breath for 3 or 4 hours at a time. They also spend a lot of the time just laying up on the riverbank under the trees or amongst the bushes. So yeah, very hard to spot crocodiles unless they actually swim out to us.
Here we are cruising along on Crocodile Watch.
So we just cruise up the river until we get some to come out. Just going to have a quick look over here on our left. We will get to see the remains of a crocodile's nest just up ahead of us. Crocodiles actually breed and nest during the wet season, so the breeding season is finished for this year. But we have got a couple of nests that you can just see the remains of. So just over on our left here, opposite the front of the boat at the moment, you'll see a little clearing in the grass. If you have a look in there, you'll see the remains of just a little pile of dead sticks and grass there. That is the remains of the nest site, or the grass out with their teeth, and then they push it up into a mound. And when the crocodile first built that mound of grass, it was about 1 metre high, and that's where they lay the eggs. They lay between 50 and 80 eggs. How long ago was that one made? That was, I think she built that one back in about December or January. But what's happened this year is we've had 3 floods on the Adelaide River, and consequently most of the crocodiles' nests got washed away. That's why there's not very much of that nest left now. Normally you'd see quite a bit more of a nest mound than that. There's another one just up here on our left in this. There's a crocodile up ahead of us, so we'll start feeding this one on the left. So yeah, with the flooding that we had, most of the crocodiles' nests, as I said, got washed away, and consequently the eggs got washed away with them. So it's very unlikely that we'll see any baby crocodiles hatch at all this year. Alright, so we've got our first crocodile coming in. You'll see it just swimming in, moving its tail from side to side. That's how crocodiles propel themselves. They don't use their legs to swim at all. They also use their tail to jump. This is actually a female crocodile we call Daffy. They certainly don't eat 4 times a day, but we're out here 4 times every day. I think she's doing some window shopping at the moment though. She's having a good look inside the windows. Just got to get her interested in the food. Crocodiles don't rush into it. They generally sneak up on their food or their prey very quietly. Cherie's just got to get her to lift her head up. Once they lift their head up and they drop their tail straight down, that's when they're ready to jump. When they jump, they just propel themselves up through the water using their tail. Sometimes in these colder mornings it takes a bit to get them motivated. They are cold-blooded animals, so until their bodies are actually warmed up. Even they're a little bit slow off the mark, takes a bit to get them going. The reason I know who she is, well, she got called Daffy. If you have a look at the front of her snout, she's got a sort of a duck-billed shaped snout, a little bit more pronounced than some of the other crocodiles. But the main thing with the females is they're very territorial, and so we normally find them pretty close to their nest. So we pretty much know where most of the crocodiles' nests are, the females. So we know that she generally comes out along here. So she's got the head up, tail down, and you'll see her just propel herself up in the air to try and get the food. Now, all crocodiles can do that. It's not something we've taught them to do. Every species of crocodile in the world can propel itself up on its tail. They certainly don't just do it here on the Adelaide River. In fact, we've had a couple of crocodile attacks in other parts of Australia this year where crocodiles have jumped up and tried to drag somebody out of a fishing boat. There was one out on the South Alligator River a couple of months ago, and there was one actually this week in Broome where a 2-metre crocodile jumped up and tried to drag a chap out of his tinny while he was fishing. So they're certainly capable of jumping anywhere. So Daffy's got her food. Whoops, or salt water does push up this far at certain times of the year. And it gets a bit too salty for freshwater crocodiles to survive in this part of the river, so we don't find the freshies here. All the crocodiles you'll see today will be all salties or saltwater crocodiles, or estuarine crocodiles they're also known as. And the correct name or scientific name is actually Crocodilus porosus. Down at Catherine, in the Catherine River, which is purely freshwater and about 300 kilometres inland. The reason they call the saltwater crocodile is just because they've got the ability to survive in saltwater. They do that by actually excreting the salt from their bodies. They excrete it through a gland in their throat. Just allows them to desalinate themselves basically if they find themselves in salt water. As I said, they'll happily live in fresh water. This river, these type of rivers here, the tidal rivers, are a perfect environment for them. Certain times of the year the water's quite fresh, other times it gets salty. It's always this muddy colour. Makes it very easy for them to hide. They just have to sink under the surface, and they only need to be an inch or two underwater, and virtually impossible to fish along out there under the water. This could be a male crocodile this time. Again, looks a little bit too big to be a female. The younger male crocodiles are called road males, and they don't own it. Those fins that stick up on their tail, they're called scoots, and that's what they're designed for. They actually counteract each other. When a crocodile swims and moves its tail, they leave and durable leather. The other thing is that every crocodile skin product is a one-off, because the spot pattern on every crocodile is slightly different. It's a bit like our fingerprint. No such thing as twins in the crocodile world, so you'll never get two identical skins. So you're actually paying for that individuality. Every one of them's a one-off. So you're not going to turn up to a party and have your crocodile skin shoes clash with somebody else's, because they're all going to be different.
To me, part of this whole outing looking at crocodiles, it was just as exciting to see the birds of prey coming in, because the actual people on the boats, they actually feed these birds after the crocodiles have had their fill in, and they toss out food to the birds of prey. Mainly these were whistling kites, I think, or some people call them a whistling eagle. I'm not sure. The only other one, the species it could be, is the little eagle. But the whistling kite is not a true eagle. We have 3 eagles in Australia: the wedge-tailed eagle, the white-bellied sea eagle, and the little eagle. But anyway, I just love these birds, and they came in so close to the boat you could almost reach out and touch them. You'll see a few photos afterwards that I've taken as well as we go through this video. And now we're going to be coming back to look at a lot of the still shots I took of the crocodiles. I didn't take a lot of video because I was more interested in getting still photos. I was using a Canon 400D on this trip, and these are a lot of the shots that I took of the crocodiles jumping out of the water. And some of them are massive, and you just wouldn't want to fall in the water. In Australia, people are killed each year by crocodiles that jump into their fishing boats. There are similar crocodiles to these in other parts of the world. Some of the lesser crocodiles that aren't so big and the members of the family, like alligators, are not necessarily as dangerous to man as what these things are. But you wouldn't want to get near one of these. These are just monstrous. And every year, particularly in northern Australia is where they live in Australia, and up in New Guinea as well, every year there are reports of 4 or 5 fatalities possibly, where people have been out fishing in an open boat and the croc has jumped up and taken them out of the boat, or they've been on a causeway and fishing where there are signs up to say there's crocodiles here, and they just ignore the warnings, and before you know it they get taken. But anyway, you can do your research. You can find out how many people are taken by crocodiles in Australia each year, and just remember when you come to Australia, if you do, to just be very wary of these things. But they are beautiful animals. To me, they are just the living dinosaurs, like the Komodo dragon's a living dinosaur, and they're just fantastic animals. We're coming up to this massive crocodile on the riverbank that did come into the water towards us. You can see him there. He's a huge fellow, big male crocodile. Apparently someone asked the tour guide, how long does a crocodile live for? And these big males, they never die of old age. What actually happens, they rule part of the river where they're living, and then a younger male who's pretty big will challenge them for a fight to the death to take over that river and all the females, and that's what happens. So no one ever really gets to be a fully 100-year-old crocodile, as far as I know, because they get killed before they get that far. just showing you now the general area where these boats were moored and where the business was run from, some of the other boats that they had there. And various ones. I preferred the one that we were on. It was a lot higher up and you know, a bit safer if you're up on that top deck where we were. But anyway, coming up now is showing you a slide of how I conquered my fear of crocodiles, even though it's not a real one. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. I hope you've enjoyed the crocodiles. See you later.